Hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of Alumni Talks with our recommended practitioners. I'm your host, Sanjana Purohit from IHAS, and today we are in conversation with an occupational therapist, Diksha Kamble. Before I begin, I would like everyone watching us to feel free to ask us questions in the comment section, and we would shortly answer them. So you may start a watch party so that your friends and family can benefit from it. And about today's speaker, we have Kamble. She's an occupational therapist, certified Reiki practitioner, hypnotic psychotherapist, and a life coach. So, Diksha, can you tell us something more about yourself and what do you do?
All right. So you have told most of the things about me. So to add to that, like you said, that I'm an occupational therapist. However, I specialize in mental health, and I am also a Reiki practitioner, shamanic healer, something that was an extension after my hypnotherapy training with HRs. And I'm also a life coach, like you correctly put it. So my work, the work that I do, basically deals with understanding emotions, processing emotions, and understanding the power of emotions, and using that in order to make changes in your career, in your business, relationships, so on and so forth. So that is what I mostly deal with.
Wow, perfect. And what are the types of cases that you take up?
Okay, so there are different kinds of cases that I work with, because it's not only occupational therapy that I do. There's also spiritual healing, and of course there's hypnotherapy, which has a very wide range of people that we can deal with. So
Yes.
I work with differently able people and their behavioral issues, such as cases related to probably cerebral palsy or mental retardation or autism, or individuals with sensory disorders, depression, and all of that, all of the mental illnesses, the disorders diagnosis. And I also work with physical issues such as probably weight loss or psychosomatic issues, and with the
Wow.
spiritual front, probably for issues such as arthritis, so on and so forth. So it's a huge application range. So that's why a lot of different things that I work around.
Say that you work with the differently able people with the spiritual fund, you said. So, how do you do it?
All right. So let's say that I get a case of a case of mental retardation with certain behavioral issues. All right. So kids with mental retardation often present themselves with symptoms of ADHD. Okay, often, not always. All right. So they have behavioral issues such as maybe issues with attention, issues with lack of concentration, easy distractibility, and unable to sit at one place. So one thing that we use is occupational therapy with them, because what we don't understand with these kids is that their issues with attention and concentration has a lot to do with how they're able to process sensory information through their senses, which means, let's say, someone has issues taking up too much of sensory information, such as maybe loud noises. If there is too much of loud noise, then the child becomes very angry, irritable, has attention issues and all of that. If you just look at it on the surface, it might just look like a child who is just throwing a tantrum. But if you look closer through the lenses of occupational therapy, you would realize that it is also related to his sensory system. How balanced is his sensory system? So that is one. And when you ask me about the spiritual dynamics of it, so according to spiritual sciences, everything has, um, like we say, chi or universal energy to it. So any disease,
Hmm.
any disorder, anything which is out of balance is due to this chi or universal energy, which is not in a state of balance of or equilibrium. So through spiritual healing modalities, you bring them back in a state of balance. So using occupational therapy, Reiki, and some techniques of hypnotherapy to enhance and fasten the overall effect of therapy for the clients who are, patients who are differently able, basically.
Wow, it seems quite interesting. And let's say a quick hi, Nitin sir, then hi, Malika ma'am, and yes, a quick hi to them.
Hello, everyone.
Perfect. So, Diksha, my next question is, what are the different approaches that you use?
So, when you ask me approaches, do you mean psychology approaches? Is that what you mean to say? Such as psychoanalytical, cognitive behavioral? Is that what you say? Right? Okay.
Yes.
So, the approach that I generally use is more of psychodynamic or psychoanalytical in nature, which basically, goes back to the root of the issue, the root cause of the problem, and
Hmm.
basically childhood history and all of those things, family history. So that is the approach that I generally use. But then also
Hmm.
many a times we have certain clients and certain patients who are more into that, we want more of symptomatic relief. And because something like psychoanalysis or psychodynamic approach, often it's a very long term approach, and not a lot of
Right.
people are have the kind of patience to sit with it, and because sometimes it doesn't even make sense to them. They're like, how is this problem related to whatever happened in my childhood? To a lot of patients, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. So for certain patients or certain clients who only want cognitive relief, I use a lot of cognitive behavioral techniques with them. Also, a lot of techniques that I've learned through my CHCP program, so that they are also able to learn effective skills that are necessary to bring the change that they are looking for.
So you teach them skills also.
Skills, rather than teaching it, like we have learned in CHCP, that you go in a state of hypnosis, and basically you access your own subconscious to understand those skills. So I remember that in CHCP, one thing that was taught, which has remained in my mind and which I feel is very important. Back then, I used to think, yeah, like anything, this is not true. So I remember Nitin
Hmm.
sir always used to say that for any therapy to make sense, you need both awareness and skills. If you have the awareness that you have an issue, but still you don't have the skill set to deal with it, so awareness
Right.
won't really be useful. And
Right.
initially, it didn't make a lot of sense to me because I'm quite a feeling based person. So I used to be like, no, no, awareness is enough. But as
Hmm.
and when I went through my own experience of dealing with different kind of clients, I realized for a lot of clients and for a lot of patients, this is very, very true. When they are aware, I have anxiety. I
Hmm.
know where it is coming from. However, I don't know what can I do to make it right.
Hmm.
So skill set really comes into picture because a lot of times people are aware where it is coming from, but still they don't know how to handle it. So skill set is also something which is very, very necessary, which also forms a very important aspect of CHCP. So yeah.
Beautiful. And let's see. Okay. My next question is that how do you use CHCP in your own practice?
Okay. So CHCP, how do I use it in my own practice, right?
Yes.
So, like I mentioned, I use CSCP very, very extensively. My
Hmm.
therapies are a combination of hypnotherapy, and hypnotherapy is a huge, how do I put it? A huge and very important aspect of all of my therapies that I do, all of the therapy work that I do.
Hmm.
So, probably I'll explain it to you with an example. So,
Yes.
let's say I have someone with an issue which is psychosomatic in nature, someone who presents to me with an issue of anxiety disorder. along with
Hmm.
psychosomatic complaints such as, breathlessness or vomiting and things like that.
Hmm.
So I use CHCP where I use the garden metaphor as a diagnostic tool so that
Hmm.
they themselves understand and realize, go through the process, then they understand where the problem is also coming from, even though metaphorically in spite of it. And then I design the whole program accordingly. So let's say that we get certain insights that probably for anxiety, like I said, that
Hmm.
I need to work on my breathing, or I need to what? I need to understand like this anxiety is probably coming from something that happened to me back then. So then,
Hmm.
according to whatever I get in that diagnostic journey, the rest
Hmm.
of the therapy is decided accordingly. Would it need regression? Would it need maybe, you know, just certain visualization technique? Or would it need
Hmm.
something else? Or would healing, some sort of healing work? So that is
Hmm.
how I use CHCP. And yeah, also what I feel CHCP helps with is that, CHCP really makes the client or the patient feels empowered.
Okay.
That it's me who is doing it. I'm not listening to someone and that's why I'm doing it. I
Hmm.
decide and I am in control. So that is, I feel, a very empowering feeling for any client to feel as if the locus of control belongs to them and is within them.
So it's
So
more of a
this is how
person centric.
it is more of a,
Person centric.
yeah, very much centric.
Okay, so Diksha, most of us don't might be not knowing about the garden metaphor. So can you please give a small explanation or what the gist of it?
The metaphor therapy, you mean to say that approach, that technique you're talking about?
Yes, the gist of it. What is garden metaphor?
All right. So, metaphor therapy is because our unconscious mind understands things through stories. So, of course, when we are trying to access our unconscious mind for information about our issues, we are going to speak in the same language of metaphors.
Right.
So,
Right.
through metaphor therapy, basically, you put the
Hmm.
person in a state of hypnosis, of
Hmm.
course, with their permission. And after that, you basically let them explore a metaphor of their choice, which is a metaphor of their issue, and what is the reason for that thing, which is also seen in a lot of metaphors. And then you basically rescript it or reframe it through metaphors again, through the use of metaphors. And they are going to transform those metaphors themselves. So if I have
So you
to
tell
tell
them.
you that, can you
So
just
you
come
tell
again?
that. Yes. So do you tell them that you have to explain in terms of metaphor, or how do they do it? How do you start with the session, like for the metaphor thing?
So for metaphor, like probably basically tell them. So during the first session, of course, I explain them what is hypnotherapy, what is the science of the subconscious mind and the levels of the mind, theory of mind, basically. And
Hmm.
after that, during the next session, or if we have time during the same session,
Hmm.
I explain them to choose a metaphor of their liking. So probably an option between a library, a garden, a forest, a ship,
Hmm.
and they choose one. And then I tell them that this metaphor is going to represent your current problem. And in order to access that metaphor, I would be putting you in a state of trance with your
Hmm.
permission, and you're completely in control of the process. And they're
Right.
like, okay. And then you use different, hypnotic trance techniques in order to put them in a trance. And then
Hmm.
when they are there, they enter their metaphor, which can be a library, garden, or if they come up with their own choice, excellent. So that, and then you
Hmm.
explore it. So yeah,
Wow.
in a gist, I have to explain it.
Wow. Perfect. So question is, what were the challenges that you faced before learning CHC?
Challenges in terms of like professional challenges or personal challenges?
The professional
assuming it
challenge.
means professional challenges. All right. So professional challenges were many actually, to be very, very honest. Occupational therapy is a very
Hmm.
wonderful and beautiful field. However, there were certain
Hmm.
limitations to it, limitations that I felt weren't letting me explore my client's recovery fully. So when I say that, what
Hmm.
I mean is that let's say a client of schizophrenia comes to me, all right, and with schizophrenia, the prognosis isn't always good. It is generally like poor because it's generally termed as a
Hmm.
lifelong disorder, right? So for them,
Hmm.
learning skill set is very important, and also skill set with regards to something that they want to do, right?
Hmm.
So what used to often happen with my patients of schizophrenia is that if they were recommended any sort of
Hmm.
activity, they didn't exactly like it or tend to it because they just felt like, for like patients of schizophrenia, because they have hallucinations and all of those things, so
Hmm.
they have this feeling that they can't trust themselves, and they often feel that all of the world is against them and they have to do whatever is told, asked them to do. So even this command used to be taken in a similar way, but because of hypnotherapy, because of something like conversational hypnosis, so of course you can't use full-fledged hypnosis with patients of schizophrenia because there's psychosis which is presented, but of course you can use certain other techniques that have been taught in the CHCP program. So with that they could explore their skill set and their favorite activities on their own. So again, empowerment is something which is very necessary for patients, especially like that of schizophrenia. So CHCP
Right.
definitely, what crossed and let that limitation go away completely. So I think that was really, really wonderful. And one more thing I would like to add is that as an occupational therapist, we are allowed to help patients live with their diagnosis or disorder independently, which is wonderful. However, the kind of person that I am, I wanted to help them further, to help them heal that disorder completely. So I think CHCP gave me the ability to do that for my clients and help them
Okay.
further on their journey.
And can you explain how did you do that and how do you do it?
Do what exactly you mean to say?
The skills that you were saying about the schizophrenia people.
Right, right. Okay. So in the CHCP, it's something called as the soft C model. The CHCP coursework, you have something called as soft, where skills is a part of the soft C model. All right.
Hmm.
And how do I put it? So I would have to explain the whole soft C model actually for that. But to tell you that in a gist, what I would say is that you put them in a state of hypnosis, you do your work that you do, and after that, in that state, when the person is in a trance, if he comes up with certain skill set, all right, so you make a note of that. So if you have a goal, let's say the goal is of weight loss, and the person
Hmm.
knows that, yeah, this weight loss issue is related to my childhood, and because my father, had a very
Hmm.
comforting relationship with food, and it's the same that I share. I know that. But now the skill set that are
Hmm.
required to lose weight is probably exercising and exercising and dieting and all of those things. So skill set would be that you would write it down and you would take a commitment. You
Hmm.
would test that commitment, how committed the client is to the said
Hmm.
skills or that he has talked about, and from then on you would take it ahead from there. So these skill set that they learn is something that they are also motivated towards, committed towards, and also something which is probably easily achievable for them.
Wow. So my next question is that CSCP helped you overcome those challenges. Can you provide with case study?
Okay, can you come again?
Okay. So my question is that how has CHCP helped you overcome those challenges, and can you please provide us with a case study example?
Okay, okay. So, like I said before, that skill set skills is something that CHCP is a huge part of. And if I have to describe it with a case study, let me talk of a very recent client of mine that I'm dealing with. He
Hmm.
is a case of OCD. All right. So, as we are aware, and he's clinically diagnosed as OCD, not something that we generally say. So, and as most of us are aware that,
Hmm.
they are perfectionists, and he also has trust issues, and and he has trust issues, and generally he is very cautious by nature.
Hmm.
So for him, what was necessary and how a CHCP helped me was, again, that, like I spoke before, the thing about empowerment. So because he doesn't trust anyone,
Hmm.
and I don't know who gave him this idea about hypnotherapy, that hypnotherapy is, faking it till you can make it. So he had that idea about hypnosis. So he was very reluctant about doing hypnosis.
Hmm.
But after he went through the process. So the process that I used for him was again metaphor and certain body somatic techniques that I give to my clients. So with that,
Oh.
one, he understood that I'm completely in control of this process. The way that they
Hmm.
show it in movies, that this person will completely change me into a new person and I'll be completely in control. This is not happening. And two, because he
Hmm.
trusted no one, like absolutely no one. And he had been through a lot of therapists. And he only and only believed in the power of the unconscious because it's connected to the universal energy, is what he told me. So that's why he was like, this is definitely going to work because, I am not doing
Hmm.
it for him. The universal energy is doing it for him, right? So for him, that was very empowering, and also the ability to believe in himself. So he had confidence issues, also a lot of confidence issues. So the fact that,
Hmm.
he could do it and he did it, it's his unconscious mind, and I didn't say a word. So that was very empowering for him. And I remember before the session, he was very nervous. He kept telling me, I'm very nervous. What are you going to do to me? I'm very nervous, very nervous. His body language was
Hmm.
very different. He was breathing fast, and he kept fidgeting with his fingers. And right after the session, his body language completely changed. And that is his first session, all right. Just yesterday, I had this
Wow.
session. His body language
Wow.
completely changed, sitting erect, and he was, talking to me. And so generally, he's very scared. Like during the first session when we spoke,
Hmm.
and he used to call me also, he was very scared, and he never used to interrupt me in between. But now he was doing this, like, just a second, ma'am, I want to tell you something. I have a doubt. So that was a huge, like,
Hmm.
I felt like a 360-degree turn. And so,
Wow.
yeah, so that is the case example, how it really helps you. And if probably I only did occupational therapy or only life coaching, probably, I still wouldn't have been able to cross this hurdle, because even as an
Hmm.
occupational therapist, I wouldn't have been able to really go and access his unconscious mind like that, where he is actually doing it. It's not just me who is doing it. So I think this is
Hmm.
really empowering, and this is one of the challenges that CHCP really helps you overcome. And how, like, beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah.
Perfect. And my next question is, how is it important for other psychologists or people from your field to know about CHCP? So, since you are an occupational therapist, so how important is it for other occupational therapists and psychologists to know about CHCP?
Well, it's very important. One, because I believe as mental health practitioners, it's very important for us to first also be aware of our own, patterns and behaviors because of the risk of counter transference, which always exists in therapy. So, CHCP is one healing modality that can also be done on self. So you can
Hmm.
also work on yourself, and when you work on self, it of course helps you to also, understand your clients and your patients better. That is one. Second is, if you want your client to truly feel empowered, and because we say that as psychologists, as therapists, as occupational therapists, we are not supposed to give advices. Yet,
Right.
as hard as we try, it happens sometimes that we have a tendency to give advice. Once or twice it happens. If they ask us something, we tell them, right? So I think
Hmm.
CHCP really takes care of that. CHCP really, overcomes that hurdle because the client is completely in control of the process. So that is the
Okay.
second thing I feel CHCP is important for all psychologists and occupational therapists to deal with. And also, one thing that is very beautiful about CHCP is that because it's a technique which is happening mentally, as in, with your eyes closed in a state of trance. So you can practically do anything and everything under the sun, even if you don't have the materials required, like the actual physical materials required, with his eyes closed, and still the effect would be the same because your mind can't make out the difference between, something that is actually done, like in person physicality, and something which is imagined. And when I say imagined, I mean imagined a in a clinically, therapeutically adequate trance state. So, for
Okay.
example, something like we do sensory therapy for in occupational therapy for cases of
Hmm.
ADHD or autism. So, with a lot or maybe occupational therapists are just starting out. So it might be difficult for them to
Hmm.
get all of that at the same time. So hypnotherapy or CHCP can really help there because it's all happening in the mind and it would have the same therapeutic effect. So that way,
Got
I
it.
think CHCP has a huge advantage. And that's why I would recommend this to a lot of people.
Okay. So when you say that you deal with the people of special abilities, so can you tell me how do you do it? Because even that needs an effort. So how do you initiate the whole session?
Whole session about, can you just come again? Your voice was breaking.
So
I'm so sorry.
yes, sure. So I mean that whenever you deal with a specially able child, so how do you start with the session?
Mhm.
Because it's a lot of efforts, most of a cognitive effort. So how do you do that? Can you explain with
Right.
the case
So,
study?
of course, okay, all right. So, whenever there is a case of a differently abled child or even an adult, generally the child or adult is accompanied by a caretaker. And this caretaker is
Right.
someone that the child or the adult is, quite to a lot of extent, maximally dependent on. So when first the client comes, of course, with his or her caretaker, so there is case history that I take up. There is the
Hmm.
occupational therapy evaluation that is done with relation to again the sensory system, which sensory system is affected. So, for example, if his sensory system related to uh, his touch, which is called as tactile seeking or avoiding, that is affected. So you would see how it is affected, on which side of
Hmm.
equilibrium it is. Is it towards that he is sensory seeking, as in tactile seeking? He likes to be touched more. He likes to be hugged and deep massages, deep pressure, and all of that, and he's not getting it, and that's why there are certain sensory issues. Or does he find touch aversive and he's getting it a lot, and that's why these issues are happening? So you have a questionnaire for that, and you make the parents fill it, and of course you explain it to them. After that, you do a proper evaluation of the child with connection to their range of motion and muscle power and their posture, and you check for if any other deficiencies or any other issues are presented. And after that, you also ask them for behavioral issues. And then with the child, so of course, when you say differently abled kids, it's an umbrella term for a lot of different kinds of kids and adults. So to deal with each one of them, your approach has to be very, very different, because you want to make the child or the adult feel that you can understand them and you are like them, something that we term as mirroring. So if you have a child of ADHD, so you would want to present your body language like that, like little jumpy and little cheerful. But if you have a child of autism with you, so you don't
Hmm.
want to be jumpy, because that would scare off the child and he'll run away from your clinic. So you don't want to do that with the
Hmm.
case of autism. So that is one where you would, basically form that trust and build that rapport with the child. And then during the subsequent sessions, again, if it's different for differently abled kids, because it's an umbrella term for a lot of different individuals. So if it's in case of ADHD and they are not able to sit, so of course you would, channelize their aggression or their excess energy first through jumping or
Hmm.
through the evaluation that you've got, basically that which needs need to be fulfilled, or sensory ball pool
Hmm.
or stuff like that. If it's a case of autism, so you would do something different. And then after that, when they are balanced, and now that you know that their excess energy has been channelized, then they would be able to sit with you. And then you would sit
Hmm.
with them, and with kids of ADHD, because they're not able to sit still. So I use play therapy with conversational hypnosis for them to
Wow.
bring about changes and understand. So I remember it was I was with Nitin sir during the training for Train the Trainers program, and that is when I got this case, and I'd even spoken to Nitin sir about this, that I'm using play therapy with
Hmm.
hypnosis. Is it? Yeah, yeah, it's absolutely okay. So yeah, that is what you do, and
So
yeah,
you
also
mixed.
one.
Hmm.
Mhm.
So you mixed play therapy with conversation hypnosis.
Yes, I did that, because that was
Wow.
he was a very, very young child. He was 4 years old, and hypnosis was something. I mean, he was so jumpy. I used to try and make him sit. He used to go and hide under my table. So the
Oh.
only way to get his attention was through his toys that he likes, and that was the
Hmm.
only way he could talk to me. And if I used to ask him to close his eyes, he used to feel that his parents will go away, because he also had certain abandonment issues. So play
Hmm.
was the only way to capture his attention. So CHCP also helps you to, increase and enhance your creativity, where you're able to think of different ways of, integrating different therapies and approaches together. So that is also
Wow.
what I've learned, and CHCP has helped me also that way.
Wow. And you were saying something before.
Before, yeah, I was going to say the same thing about creativity, that it enhances your creativity.
Wow. And you are also a shamanic healer and a Reiki healer. So, how has SCP helped you in that area?
Well, I think it all started with CHCP, honestly. So how do I put it? So i I had certain abilities, healing abilities,
Hmm.
but I was very scared of them before CHCP. And I remember our level 4 was done, level 5 was done. In level 5, there were certain things that were seen, and I think it was like an indication for me to finally go and embrace those abilities that I have. So that
Hmm.
is what I did. That is how CHCP helped me. If I have to talk about it through a personal angle, and I see shamanic healing and Reiki healing as an extension of CHCP, or as an extension of hypnosis. Because according to Carl Jung, there is the unconscious, there is the personal unconscious which we have, and then there's the collective
Hmm.
unconscious. And collective
Hmm.
unconscious is the place where there are all sort of archetypes, or what people refer to as Akashic records, or all kinds of collective. So I think
Hmm.
how I would put it as is that hypnotherapy or CHCP helps you deal with the personal unconscious, your personal memories, personal experiences, personal thought patterns. And then the extension of that would be, of course, shamanic healing, Reiki healing, where you're able to access the supra conscious or the universal unconscious, tapping into that wisdom
Hmm.
and using it for healing. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay. So, what are the techniques that you use personally to yourself that you have learned in CHCP?
Well, a lot of them. I think I use it every day, and it has become such a part of my life that I think now I don't even realize it when I'm doing it, because it's like second nature now. So there are a lot of techniques that I use. One thing would be that I use is inner child. So I can't call it inner child therapy, because I don't like follow all the process, but because, like I said, it has become second nature. So now, even if I just close my eyes and intend to go in a state of hypnosis to access my inner child, it just happens automatically. So one is inner child regression. That is what I do. So I go and speak to my inner child, which is a metaphorical representation of your own infantile emotional needs. Okay. So
Hmm.
let's say if for 5 or 7 days in a row I've been very busy with work and I've got no time to have for any sort of time for self care, and I am getting cranky, or I'm going and lashing and venting out on my loved ones that you are not giving me time and you don't love me. So I know it's my inner child, and I need to go in a state of hypnosis and access my inner child and ask the child that what is happening, what do you need, and apply those skill set and become that parent for the child. So I think that is one that I use extensively. Um,
Hmm.
Next, that again happens is which one happens? I think the mind your relationship. So it's not a technique, of course, but the level three, all of the techniques that we learned there.
Hmm.
So if I am having certain issues in my relationship, so now I even talk to my partner like this. You know, my love language is that of words. So if you would give me books, it won't make sense. I am, my love language is words to say something nice. So I think that, and that has really helped me understand my relationship with my partner, especially. Also with my parents, and with my sister, because our love language differs greatly, especially with my sister. So in relation to all sort of relationships too.
Hmm.
And three would be probably I use it a lot for my work also. So I use Reiki with hypnosis for my work, like for self.
Wow.
And so that is what I do, because there are different techniques that I've learned. So I combine certain techniques together in order to go
Wow.
deeper. So for my I combine Reiki with hypnosis, or I just do shamanic healing for progressing my work, or expanding my work, or understanding how am I supposed to conduct a workshop, or things like that.
Wow. So when you said that you combine Reiki with hypnosis, so how do you do
Yes.
that? Because it's completely different.
Okay. Okay. Right. So Reiki is something which is channeled energy. All
Hmm.
right. So, channeled energy means while I'm talking to you, I can just
Hmm.
open up my channels for Reiki and I can talk to you. So that is
Okay.
also in a way I'm channeling Reiki and I'm talking to you. So Reiki is helping me do that. So when I'm talking about hypnosis combined with Reiki, so before
Hmm.
going into a state of hypnosis, I will open myself as a channel for Reiki towards the through specific symbols and prayers that have been taught. And so basically, Reiki would be guiding my hypnotic process. So
Okay.
that way. So yeah, if
Wow.
that sense. So yeah, I also do it for my clients actually, where I take them down the garden, like we do it generally for metaphor therapy. And then in the garden, I
Hmm.
tell them that you're opening yourself to receive Reiki for your
Hmm.
highest and greatest good to the greatest of your ability. So Reiki is also something that you can do through distance. So I use hypnosis to help them be in a state of allowance for Reiki and really open up their channels for Reiki, and then I give them Reiki to enhance the overall effect of healing and therapy that they're doing. So yeah, that is how I use it. CHCP with Reiki.
Wow.
Thank you.
So I remember you telling me that you use hypnosis for weight loss treatment also.
Yes,
So
yes, yes.
yes. So can you tell us how is that possible?
It is definitely possible. My client is a, like a live example of how you can lose weight in
Hmm.
case you are, ready and open to the idea of it. So this was a client, my first international client actually, and
Okay.
he told me that I only only want hypnosis because I don't
Hmm.
believe in tea or shamanic healing, so I don't want anything else. I was like, okay, fine, we can do that. So when we did his first garden metaphor, like diagnostic journey for him through CHCP, so we realized
Hmm.
certain things that why it is happening and how it is happening. Uh,
Hmm.
However, for this client, like I said, for certain clients, skill set and certain actions are very important. So he was still not happy, and
Hmm.
because everything is metaphoric and not literal, he was like this, can you do something else? So we did like a skill set for him, the whole SOPC model, and we jotted down all of the things that he wants to do and what would help and what is the commitment level and stuff. So now when he knew that I'm doing something the way he wants to do it, then he was open to other ideas such as
Hmm.
even regression. So then, when we did regression for him, what we realized was that his family has a history of starvation, famines, in the sense that
Okay.
his grandfather was in World War II, and during the World War II, he was from Germany. During World War II, there were a lot of issues around food. So, food was something that they really struggled with, and food was
Hmm.
something that they went to for feeling the emotions of safety and comfort. Now, my client's father watched his father having such a relationship with food.
Your
So,
client's father.
the client's father, yeah, watched his father. So, the
Okay.
father had the same kind of relationship with food, and he was like a very angry man. Now,
Hmm.
the client, seeing all of that, he also modeled the same behavior.
Hmm.
So, we remember the last session that we did was around understanding this trauma, like where it is coming from. And because the client was not at all aware of this, it was very, very difficult for him to come to terms with. So we had to go, in bits and pieces towards this piece of information. But even this awareness, along with skill set, helped us to. So initially, when we started, he didn't lose any weight at all, and when in the next week we got this piece of information and the skill set and all of those things started, he lost. 7 to 8 kgs in a span of a week. And I'm not
Wow.
exaggerating. So,
Wow.
yes, of course, it's also the client's commitment. He was really, really motivated towards losing weight, and the client's motivation and commitment plays a huge role as much as how good a therapist is. So, that was also a thing. But of course, hypnotherapy can also work wonders. CHCP can work wonders with even physiological issues such as weight loss or weight gain.
Hmm.
And you have a set of different techniques that you can pick up from, because with certain clients, they are like, oh, I don't want to know why it is happening. I just want to, uh, take care of the symptoms. So you would probably work accordingly, and then you would go around the idea of probably, understanding the root cause and how to deal with it. And certain some are that, we want to know the root cause. Until and unless we don't know that, we are not going to move forward. So CHCP
Hmm.
also gives you the freedom, because there are a number of techniques that are there to choose one which works accordingly.
Okay. Beautiful. So, can you tell me what is your favorite therapy out of all the therapies? Like that you use mostly?
Therapies, as in techniques related to CHCP, or
Yes.
which CHCP. Uh, I love regression. I love it absolutely. It's uh, it's very it's very insightful, very enjoyable, and very profound. I mean, I it changed my life when for level 5 I was the demo, and the experience that I had changed my life completely. And whoever I have done regression for, I have seen something
Hmm.
similar happen with them. So I think
Wow.
that is one of my favorite techniques, hands down, regression. So definitely.
Wow. So, when you are dealing with, when you are into the occupational therapy, so what are the therapies or techniques that is a must from the CHC module that every
Um,
should?
o- okay, so again, occupational therapy is an umbrella term for a lot of, different, because it has subfields also, like mental health field. So what I'll do is I'll stick to mental health, and I'll speak accordingly. So, occupational therapists deal a lot with understanding activities which needs to be picked up for their patients or clients in order to have certain therapeutic benefits. So, I
Hmm.
feel for occupational therapy activities, the techniques which are must would be, I don't know, regression, because I like it so much. I think soft C model would definitely be a must, because that is how you generally begin all of that with. And also, I don't know, again, it depends, Sanjana, because certain
Hmm.
clients would come to you, because even in occupational therapy, it has a wide range of applications. So let's say someone is having some issue, and the stressor is relationship. So you would probably give them the mind your relationship model, and you would work accordingly. For someone else, it would be, something different. And occupational therapists also work in that sense, where their
Hmm.
approach is very holistic in nature, not just one single centered. So it also takes into account the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, all angles to it. So I can't actually pinpoint one,
Hmm.
but if I have to, I would say regression, because I like it so much.
Okay. And what if a occupational therapist is learning CHCP and has learned CHCP? Okay. So, what would be the don'ts of it in occupational therapy? So, any particular thing that they shouldn't be doing with their clients?
Okay, so I think this is a given that if you have a case of schizophrenia, or anyone presented with any sort of psychotic symptoms, you can't use intense techniques such as regression, or
Hmm.
inner child therapy for them. So not supposed to do it. Second would be, I won't say don't, but when you are using a certain techniques of CHCT. So let's
Hmm.
say you have a client who has severe anger issues. Let's say a patient of bipolar, and he
Hmm.
is on the side of mania, and
Hmm.
he is very very irritable. So you're not going to sit there and try and explain them the mind your relationship model or something like that if their stressor is relationship issues. So when you're doing it, so don't do it when the patient is not ready. That is true. And also one thing which is very very important I forgot to mention is pacing and leading was one of also the most important, though a very simple but a very important technique taught in CHCT, which really helps you form a connection and a rapport with your clients or patients. So not to use any other technique before using pacing and leading is what would be my definite advice. First, do pacing and leading, do mirroring with your clients so that they begin to trust you, and then you can do what you want, even
So,
for occupational therapists or anyone. For
right. So, can you explain our audience that what is pacing and leading?
So, pacing and leading is based on a very, very simple principle or understanding that if you want to tell someone something, they are not going to listen to you until and unless you listen to them or you give them what they want. So,
Right.
for example, let's say that you have a patient who is angry and he really wants to talk to you. So there are two
Hmm.
aspects to it. One is the verbal aspect, and the second is the non-verbal aspect. So first, I would finish with the verbal aspect, and then we can come to the non-verbal aspect of it. So if you know the patient is angry, but you want, you want to basically begin with therapy, but you can't start with it unless and until you don't pace them pace them in the sense you be what going through. So once
Hmm.
you are with them with what they are going through, you make them
Hmm.
feel that you are on the same wavelength through the way you're talking, actively listening. And then when you are able to get that trust, only then you can lead them towards where you want them to go with
Hmm.
regards to therapy. So verbally, probably, telling them that, oh, I understand what you're going through, a lot of people
Hmm.
feel that. So pacing that. So that is the verbal
Hmm.
aspect of it. And the non-verbal aspect of that would be your body language. So let's say that your client is presenting himself or herself in a particular posture and a particular
Hmm.
tone of voice. For example, patients of anxiety, they are very, very
Hmm.
scared. And if you talk
Hmm.
to them in a very loud pitch, they are going to be scared. You're going to come off as aggressive. And you don't want to do that for them. So you are
Hmm.
probably going to, come to their level in a tone, in a posture which is like them. And then when you
Hmm.
feel that slowly and gradually they are mirroring your body language as well, then probably you can
Hmm.
lead them towards a state of balance through your body language also. So probably if I'm scared, this is like a very very low tone of voice which denotes fear. So probably a tone
Hmm.
of confidence which is towards balance, and that is where you want to lead them towards. So that is what you would do it, and this wouldn't happen just in a single session. Of course, this would happen across a lot of sessions. So that is in a gist what is pacing and leading, which also includes mirroring, how you're mirroring their language, their body language, their breathing rate. Of course, there's a caution that if the patient is a patient of asthma and or they have some breathing problem, don't start mirroring their breathing. Otherwise, you might start hyperventilating. So yeah.
Okay. That's so beautiful. Okay. And my question is, can you share your future plans with us?
Okay. So my future plans are basically, so I have my own endeavor called the White Space, And initially, it was mostly about providing therapy. But now that, there are a lot of different things that I learned, and there are different techniques that I am coming up with. So I want to start teaching people integrated programs which are psycho-spiritual in nature. So probably something in relation to psychosomatic, body somatic techniques, all right? Or so I'm a Reiki practitioner now. I'm not a Reiki master. So probably teaching Reiki to others, and certain shamanic techniques. So I'm also into ancestral healing, something that I do, or into understanding the energy dynamics of a business, and how you can bring that change into business or work that people are not really aware of. So these are some of the plans that I have where I want to expand white space further into something that really helped me and that would also help others. So
Wow.
yes, that is one of the most important future plans.
Wow. And when you said psycho spiritual, what does that mean?
Psycho-spiritual means healing modalities which include certain psychology concepts as well as spiritual concepts. So, for example, the concept of shadow self. It's a concept which is also spiritual and also psychological in nature, because the pioneer of it is one of my favorites, Carl Jung. So something like that, the shadow self, or the work of sub personalities that is done. So these concepts are something which is also largely seen through gestalt therapy, such as the empty chair technique. But this is also something that is seen in shamanic healing. So then that becomes psycho spiritual, because both the approaches are used to teach this healing modality.
Wow, it's beautiful.
So that is like, I know.
Let me check if we have any questions.
All right.
Perfect. So we are towards the end of today's session. Thank you so much, everyone. You all been such a great audience. Thank you, Diksha, for your valuable time and your inputs.
Thank
I
you.
would
It was a pleasure.
thank you. And I would also like to mention here that we at iChas have initiated with a couple of initiatives, and we have updated the details on our website. You can visit us at www.ichas.com. We spell it as ICHARS. So yes, you can visit our website and get to know more about that. And see you everyone on the next Wednesday, that is the 15th of July. And we'll be in conversation with a clinical psychologist. So stay tuned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.